Welcome to Inside Judicial Watch. I'm your host, Bruce Schlesman. With me today, we have Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton to talk about the State of the Union and border wall and security. Thanks so much for joining us, Tom.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me again, Bruce.
So first question, I'd like to talk about the State of the Union, what you thought in relation to what we're doing and what Judicial Watch is doing.
Yeah, there's the political aspect of the speech, which is something that Judicial Watch has less of an interest in. I mean, generally speaking, I thought it was a good speech. Despite having some hard-charging language, it was something I think that left people with a good feeling when he highlighted some of, at least the individual citizens that were in attendance. It's hard to argue with fine heroes and Americans who are being highlighted by the president here.
Absolutely.
So, I think that probably benefited him politically. But importantly, from Judicial Watch's perspective, he focused on the rule of law issue of our day, which is the illegal immigration crisis. And what I appreciated about it, and something that we've often said here at Judicial Watch, is that, you know, this is a humanitarian crisis, and you're not showing compassion to illegal aliens by not securing the border. In fact, you're causing more heartache for them. The human trafficking that takes place at the border, it's all done through the cartels. No one travels to Mexico, or few do, through Mexico to our southern border without the sufferance of the cartels. The cartel takes a cut, and that cut can be severe, as the president highlighted the sexual abuse that takes place, the abuse of children, the kidnappings that take place in order to get more money from the families of those who are being shepherded up into the United States. And that's got to stop. You know, that's got to stop, because it will protect the illegal aliens who are in that terrible cycle of violence and misery. But it also obviously will protect Americans. So it's a twofer. It protects the safety and national security of America, and it prevents those populations that the left and the open borders crowd supposedly care about from being victimized further. And that's why Judicial Watch has been so forthright in upholding the rule of law here. The rule of law protects everyone. It protects those legally present, it protects American citizens, and it does protect illegal aliens. And illegal aliens aren't being subjected to the rule of law, and as a result, they're victimized. And so it's important that the wall be part of the solution, in my view, but it's not sufficient, in the sense that I've long proposed that the military take the lead in securing our border. But on top of that, we've got to focus on interior enforcement. Because you could have a wall 100 feet high, but as long as every major city in the nation is a sanctuary city, then, you know, people are going to get around that, or they're going to come in through other means to take advantage of the lackadaisical law enforcement at the local and state level, places like California and San Francisco. And that's where Judicial Watch has been focusing some of its energies. We have a taxpayer lawsuit against San Francisco that right now is in discovery. It's a taxpayer lawsuit. Taxpayers have the right to sue in California over the illegal expenditure of funds. And those sanctuary policies, especially San Francisco sanctuary policy, is not only deadly dangerous, it's illegal. So taxpayers have standing in court to sue. The court recently, or late last year, allowed the case to move forward, and we're going to go to trial against the San Francisco sanctuary policy in the middle of the year, which frankly is further along than the Justice Department's been able to get, because they've been trying to cut off funding but been hampered by the courts in upholding the rule of law there. So it's an important issue for Judicial Watch. We've been investigating and trying to uphold the rule of law on immigration for almost 2 decades now. And we've been on the border, we've been in Guatemala, we've been in Mexico, we know what's going on. It's a mess there, and we should be thankful that we finally have the president, the first president in a generation, who's talking honestly about the border crisis.
So recently we had the government shut down with the whole wall funding, and border wall is something we've hit on a lot here. With the border wall and with border security, you mentioned some of the stuff Judicial Watch is doing and some of our lawsuits. So what's some other activities that Judicial Watch is doing to try and help with border security, help with the wall, help with sanctuary cities, as you mentioned?
Well, we've had, I've talked about our visit to Guatemala. My colleague Chris Farrell and Irene Garcia were down there with Sarah Carter, and we exposed how these caravans initially were highly organized, composed mostly of men, and had many, many, many criminals in them. So these caravans aren't the sort of the tired and poor seeking refuge. These are men who are ne'er-do-wells in their own country trying to come into our country. And we have this asylum crisis that's caused by folks just asserting asylum claims without any good faith basis, but we allow them in anyway to adjudicate them. So that's a major issue that we've exposed. And we've also exposed on the border that there's still this catch and release policy where the Border Patrol is capturing people, turning them over to ICE, and ICE is releasing them, by the busload into the United States. And this is continuing, I'm sure frustratingly to the president, under the Trump administration. But you can go back in terms of the current debate in Congress, and that was obviously what the State of the Union was about, because the president's considering what powers he has that he can get to secure the border or utilize to secure the border. A national emergency, or as I suggest, just deploying the military generally. You don't need a national emergency, but there are other things he can do. But the price for admission, I think many Republicans have convinced themselves to get security at the border, is amnesty. I don't think the other side would ever agree to amnesty in exchange for border security because they don't believe in border security. But B, we already have experience with what amnesty does. In 2005, or 2006 and 2007, Judicial Watch found when George Bush was talking about an amnesty, folks were crossing the border to try to get it. And because the Border Patrol was asking the question, are you coming to crossing the border because of discussions about amnesty? And the response was, of course we are. We're not stupid. And so the Bush administration got wind those questions were being asked, and the numbers were not good because it embarrassed their policy, and they tried to suppress it. And Judicial Watch exposed that even talking about amnesty increases illegal immigration. And then you go into the Obama administration, where through executive fiat, he starts granting amnesty to these so-called dreamers, this DACA amnesty, where individuals who are unlawfully present are provided immunity from deportation and allowed to work here contrary to law. Outrageous violation of the Constitution. And we found that he promised us, don't worry, I won't allow anyone to take advantage of this program without going through careful background vetting. Well, in fact, the security checks were not done, and Judicial Watch's documents that we uncovered through FOIA showed that the DACA amnesty meant no background checks. So that promise was broken. And the reason it was broken is because they couldn't handle the numbers. So whenever you hear about amnesty, and they say, well, don't worry, we'll make sure everyone who gets amnesty is going to be well vetted and no one will benefit from it who shouldn't. Don't you believe it. It's the government. They can't track who's coming and going legally, let alone being able to figure out the backgrounds of every illegal alien unlawfully present here.
We've been doing lawsuits in California about legal voting, and we mentioned that a little bit, and we have lawsuits in Texas. Do you want to fill us in a little bit about what's going there and kind of the whole discussion with the rule of law like we've been discussing earlier?
Well, voter integrity is a big issue for Judicial Watch. We have this Election Integrity Project, and federal law allows individuals and groups like Judicial Watch who are aggrieved to sue states over their failure to take reasonable steps to clean up the election rolls, because we found in states like California they have more people on the rolls than are eligible to vote. So we successfully sued in Ohio. We had a settlement. In Indiana we sued. Indiana did what we needed them to do, so we ended the lawsuit. In Kentucky, I think it was one of the worst states, believe it or not. A Republican-controlled state largely, had more people on the rolls than were eligible to vote. These are people who would otherwise be when there are more people on the rolls than are actually living there, it means you've got people who have moved away who are still on the rolls, or dead people who are still on the rolls. And it's my view, dirty voting rolls can mean dirty elections. So nationally, there are 3.5 million, our great Judicial Watch lawyers and investigators found, 3.5 million extra names on the rolls than are eligible to vote. And 1.56 million of them, we confirmed, are in Los Angeles County. So we sued Los Angeles County and the state of California over that massive problem, and they settled, and they agreed to remove up to 1.56 million inactive names, which are names that shouldn't be there, off the rolls over the next few years. So we've cut the problem potentially in half just with that one successful settlement. But on top of that, there's this news out of Texas, which is related, which is that you had up to 100,000 illegal aliens or aliens registered to vote illegally. And of those, up to 60,000 or so may have voted. And that's in one state. Pennsylvania announces 11,000 names, potentially aliens on the rolls who should not be there, who could be voting. So not only is voter fraud real, but it's potentially very real in the sense of having aliens unlawfully present and lawfully present here registered to vote. And I've calculated, because there's this study, I don't know if you've seen it, Bruce, out of Old Dominion University. We've talked about it extensively here at Judicial Watch. And it's a numbers game. You've got XX million numbers of illegal aliens and just aliens who are here lawfully, they have green cards, and a percentage of them are going to register to vote, both in a knowingly criminal way and accidentally. And of those, a percentage are going to vote. And they vote in large enough numbers to influence elections. It makes sense. And when you look at the numbers from this study, you extrapolate them, for instance, to 2016, I'd estimate about 1.2 million aliens voted in the presidential elections, 80% of which tend to vote Democrat. So Hillary Clinton got 80% of those votes. If you look at them in 2018, those numbers, given the turnout, I'd estimate you had 900,000 aliens unlawfully vote in the midterm elections. And when you see the Texas numbers, Bruce, and the Pennsylvania numbers, the Justice Department's got to get on a ball and investigate what's going on.
So is the DOJ doing anything about this?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. States are beginning to prosecute voter fraud more aggressively. You may have U.S. attorneys who are now prosecuting voter frauds now and again, but I would suggest, obviously, when you find voter fraud, you prosecute it. But given this kind of the sheer volume numbers that I'm talking about, the Justice Department has got to get a handle on the problem by doing a deep dive into the numbers of voter registrations, who's on the voter registration rolls nationally, compare and contrast them with the lists they have of aliens who are here, both legally and illegally, and see where there's where they meet, and see if there's if the problem is as significant as I suggest. But but short of that, it shows the urgent need not only for voter ID, but for citizenship verification. And the left hates citizenship verification. They hate voter ID, and that to me tells me the left wants aliens to vote illegally, and they want to be able to steal elections if necessary.
So this is a little off topic, but would you mind filling us in on what's going on at Judicial Watch with Hillary Clinton releases and our lawsuits ongoing and what's happening with that?
Well, it's a big deal because our lawyers are right now taking discovery in both the Clinton email scandal and the related Benghazi scandal. Because it was a Benghazi FOIA lawsuit by Judicial Watch that exposed and forced the government to admit that they were hiding these Clinton emails. And the court did not like that, because the court was, they were trying to hoodwink Judicial Watch and the court into shutting the case down without disclosing the Clinton emails. But eventually they were forced to as a result of this FOIA that we had filed. So long and short of it, now the court just recently granted us discovery. He wants to know whether her system was designed to evade FOIA, whether the court was hoodwinked, or they tried to hoodwink the court in trying to shut the case down. And that's not just Hillary Clinton at issue, that's the Justice Department and the State Department. So we're fighting the big, bad, deep state big time on this case. And then thirdly, whether we've gotten all the documents. There's still other documents out there. So we're going to be able to depose many key Clinton State Department witnesses. Her lawyer, Heather Samuelson, who was involved in deleting some of those emails, the 33,000 emails. We're going to be able to ask written questions that have to be responded to under oath of a top FBI official, Bill Priestep, who ran the Clinton email investigation because we want to know where are all the emails. Did we get them all? And because best as we can tell, Bruce, so Hillary Clinton, so you know, took 60,000 or so emails from her when she left left the State Department, all of which were government documents technically. She deleted about half of them, 33,000. Of those, the FBI, thanks to Judicial Watch's pushing for the information, the FBI was only able to uncover 5,000 of the 33,000, so that leaves 28,000 emails. Still unaccounted for, and we still want to find them. And the court's interested in where they might be as well. And this discovery also allows us to ask written questions of Susan Rice, the ambassador to the UN who lied repeatedly about Benghazi, and Ben Rhodes, an Obama White House official who was involved in the fake talking points about Benghazi. They have to answer our questions under oath about the Benghazi scandal. Yeah. Because the court's thinking, hey, this is a Benghazi case. Were they hiding these Clinton emails because of what they might contain about Benghazi? So we get to explore that in this careful discovery. So we don't get to get all the discovery we want, but we've gotten substantial discovery, and it's historic discovery, and it's the Clinton email and the Benghazi scandal. It's just front and center. Congress isn't investigating it. The Justice Department and the State Department are opposing us here. I mean, our discovery was granted over their objections. I mean, President Trump must be going crazy when he sees this. And so this will take place over the next 4 months. So this scandal is front and center for Judicial Watch, and we only do that with the support of our great contributors and those members of Judicial Watch who support our work. And we're getting results. We're doing the heavy lifting that no one else is doing here on town. Not only against the deep state with the effort to overthrow Trump, but also the effort to protect Hillary Clinton for her misdeeds. Hillary Clinton's still around. She's thinking about running for president. So it's always good to have accountability for high-level public figures who evidently, or quite apparently in the case of Hillary Clinton, have committed misconduct.
So wrapping up here, where does Judicial Watch go from here with illegal immigration, with border security, with the Hillary stuff we were talking about?
Well, we're continuing our investigations. We've got many Freedom of Information Act requests, and on the border issues, our lawyers are taking discovery over the San Francisco case right now, the sanctuary policy. We have multiple new lawsuits on the effort to collude with the Clinton campaign by the FBI and DOJ to target Trump. So we're getting documents there. As a matter of fact, we have new Clinton emails coming out. We have, over the next week, we will have maybe new text messages and documents from anti-Trump FBI agent Peter Strzok coming out. With Judicial Watch, we have all these planes waiting to take off from the runway. So it's always busy here. So, and especially as Congress and the House especially ignores all the corruption, abuse of power by these agencies, and actually tries to advance the abuse of power targeting President Trump, because that's going to be an increasing focus, is defending the rule of law and the Constitution from the predations of people like Adam Schiff and the other, the Nancy Pelosi-led wing of the Democratic Party, who are going to target President Trump with harassing investigations that aren't in the public interest and are designed to try to destroy him. I mean, they're going to be abusing their privileges to get his tax returns. I mean, that's their goal. Adam Schiff is reporting he wants to talk about, investigate all of his financial transaction over the last 30 years. That's just naked harassment and abuse of power. And it's a continuation of the abuse that we saw targeting him under Comey and FISA and Mueller. And the president is going to be facing this harassment, and our Constitution is going to be facing this harassment until the president is no longer president. But Judicial Watch is going to stand against it and try to figure out what's going on, stop it, and expose the abuse, so maybe, just maybe, someone puts a stop to it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here and taking us through this and giving us the inside scoop on what's going on.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Inside Judicial Watch. Please be sure to check us out on the website, subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and be sure to support our work if you enjoyed this episode of Inside Judicial Watch. Thank you for coming.